All right, everybody, here we are at part two of the first Christians. We're looking at a little picture of the Last Supper, which is an important event in the life of Jesus, which is still celebrated today or still honored today or respected by many. But we'll get back to that. So let's just go ahead and get back into part two. Here we go. So we were talking about parables. So they were just stories that used events from everyday life to express spiritual ideas. In the story of it's got a son. Some of y'all may know him. The prodigal son, right? Or wasteful son. Jesus told how a father welcomed back he's a very reckless, right, son with open arms. He forgave his son's mistakes. In another parable, he told of a shepherd who left his flock unguarded to go after one lost sheep. Both stories taught that God forgave mistakes and wants all people to turn away from bad deeds and be, the word you hear a lot is, saved. The parable of the you've heard of this, the Good Samaritan, is one of the best known. In this story, a man what happened to him? What happened to the man? He is beaten by robbers. A priest and other religious leaders, they looked down on him and refused to help the injured man. However, a Samaritan, a member of a group looked down on by Jesus' listeners, stopped to, what did they do? To help the victim. He treats the man's wounds and he pays for his stay at an inn. Jesus asked his followers, which man do you think truly what? Truly loves his neighbor. So let's go continue here. What is the crucifixion? Jesus and his message drew strong responses from people. His followers called attention to instances in which they believed he healed the sick and performed what did he perform? These things, miracles. That's right. They said that he was the long-awaited, looking for a Messiah. Other Jews disagreed and said that he was not a Messiah, but he was a deceiver. Above all, Judea's Roman rulers, what did they do? They feared the effects of Jesus' preaching. A person who could spark such a strong reaction what might he do? He might threaten law and order. All right, so we're looking at the year we're around 33. So Jesus is about 33 years old. He went to Jerusalem to celebrate that time that God passed over. So it's called Passover. All right, he passed over the houses that had blood on the doors. Remember this about Moses and all? An important Jewish holiday, and it's still celebrated today. There he was greeted by large cheering crowds. An event known as the Last Supper, Jesus celebrated the holiday with who was he with? His disciples. That was the picture that I showed you earlier. Here's the painting, all right, of the Last Supper. There's Jesus. Okay, let's keep going here. Fearing trouble. Leaders in Jerusalem, what did they do? They blanked Jesus. What did they do? What did they do? They arrested him. All right. Jesus was charged with, all right, what crime was he committed? He committed treason, supposedly, or disloyalty to the government. As punishment, Jesus was crucified. He was crucified or hung from a cross until dead. This was Rome's way of punishing political rebels and lower-class criminals. After Jesus' death, the followers made a startling claim. announced that Jesus had risen from the dead. Tradition states that a lady named Mary Magdalene, one of Jesus' followers, was the first to see Jesus alive again. Others, including Jesus's, who are those people that followed him, disciples, reported seeing him as well. The disciples also point to his empty tomb as proof that Jesus was the Messiah. These reports of Jesus's, this is called the resurrection. Jesus' resurrection or rising from the dead led to a new religion called Christianity. There you go. So, the first Christians. Jesus' disciples began to spread the message of Jesus and his resurrection. Small groups in the Greek-speaking cities of the Eastern Mediterranean accepted this message. Some were Jews and others were not. Those who accepted Jesus, his new name was Jesus Christ, and his teachings became known as Christians. The word Christ comes from Christos, the Greek word for, everybody know what the Greek word for Christos is for what Jesus is supposed to be, the Messiah. The early Christians formed churches, all right, or communities for worship and teaching. They met in people's houses. At these gatherings, Christians prayed and studied the Hebrew Bible. They also shared in a ritual meal called the Last Supper to remember Jesus' death. We saw the painting of it earlier, and to also remember his resurrection. All right, two important people for you to remember, who are Peter and Paul. They are called apostles, okay, or early Christian leaders who helped set up churches and spread the message of Jesus, played an important role in the growth of Christianity. All right, perhaps the two most important were, that are in the question, Peter and Paul. Okay, so Simon Peter was a Jewish, what was he? A Jewish, what was his first occupation? He was a fisher or a Jewish fisherman who had known Jesus while he was alive and had been one of the original 12 people Jesus had called to preach his message. Christian tradition states that he went to Rome after the death of Jesus and helped set up a church there. Today, the leader of the Catholic Christians, which is the largest Christian group in the world, all right, this leader is called the Pope, lives in Rome or in Vatican City, which is inside of Rome. Paul, all right, so Peter was supposed to be the beginning of the Christian church, which was the first church was the Catholic Church. Paul was another important Christian leader. He was a well-educated Jew and a Roman citizen. Paul at first hated Christianity, and he persecuted Christians in Jerusalem. He actually killed many of them. The chief Jewish priest in Jerusalem then sent him to Damascus, a city in Syria, to stop Christians in the city from spreading their faith. While on the road to Damascus, Paul had an unusual experience. It was actually a vision. According to Christian beliefs, he saw a great light, all right, and heard Jesus' voice. Paul became a Christian on the spot. He spent the rest of his life preaching Jesus' message. Paul traveled widely. He founded churches throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. All right, so what do Christians believe? From the beginning, Christians taught that Jesus was the Son of God and had come to save people. By accepting Jesus and his teachings, people could gain salvation or saved from their sins and allowed to enter heaven. That's right. Like Jesus, after the death, they would be resurrected or join God in everlasting life. Because of their belief or their faith in Jesus, Christians began to understand God in a new way. Like the Jews, Christians believed in the God of Israel and studied the Hebrew Bible, okay? And however most Christians came to believe, all right, talking about Trinity.